Hello folks, welcome back, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about the Formula 1. Now of course last weekend we had the German Grand Prix, this weekend we have the Hungarian Grand Prix, and what I'm going to be talking about at this point is the penalty system in Formula 1. Now the reason why I'm going to be talking about this in particular, and why I'm talking about it in particular today, is because as we come up to the summer break, we're coming up to the temporary kind of place where we're reviewing how Michael Massey has done as race director. Of course, Michael Massey took over on the eve of the Australian Grand Prix after the tragic death of Charlie Whiting. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this today is because it looks like the FIA might need to look at the penalty system. Now, of course, this isn't something that is just a debate in Formula 1. Of course, I might talk about it another time in some other events, but the most recent World RX race in Sweden, whilst it was an amazing race, it was an event marred by so many penalties just for track limits. And it just felt like it was taken away from the racing. Now, of course, there have been some decisions before in Formula 1 that have incurred the wrath of drivers. Max Verstappen's penalty, for example, at Monza a while back. But what I've got here is a piece of card. If you watched Sunday's video, you'll know what this is. If you haven't, this is a piece of card that I wrote up on immediately after the race on Sunday, and I've updated it now to include the two penalties that the Alfa Romeo drivers got for driving aid infringement because of the poor synchronisation between the clutch and what the hand controls were doing for the clutch paddle. Now, of course, one of the reasons why I have this here is because of the fact that since we've had Albon, Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, Grosjean and Magnussen all investigated, and eventually two of them dropped down the order, it meant that the second half of the top 10, it was the second half of the top 10 after the race, were under investigation by the stewards. And that's a mad thing. Of course, it was a very different race to what we'd expect. We saw an unsafe release in which Ferrari got fined for an unsafe release of Charles Leclerc into the path of Romain Grosjean. Grosjean was on the receiving end on Sunday, however on Saturday he was the kind of delivering end of an unsafe release, I believe, into the path of Daniel Kvyat. But it's really weird to think about the kind of penalties we ended up seeing. We saw Hamilton as well receive a penalty for the pit bollard entry, which is something that he didn't receive a penalty for last season, when he did essentially the other way round. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this in particular is because this has been a trend. It's been a trend in F1 this season. Just thinking about the past few races, really. Whilst the start of the season we didn't necessarily remember it, to be honest, we don't really remember most of the first third of the season now, or at least I don't. We had Monaco, Max Verstappen picked up a penalty. We had Canada, Seb Vettel picked up a penalty, ended up losing the race win. We had, when we got back across, we saw France, where Daniel Ricciardo picked up two penalties on the final lap due to poor overtaking and track limits. In Austria, we saw a debate about penalties regarding a post-race investigation into Max Verstappen. Now, of course, whether or not any of these are ones that you think are justified or whether you think they're not is a separate matter entirely. But the fact that we've now ended up with this race, and of course we have to say Hockenheim was an exceptional race in more ways than one. Exceptional with the way that it was extraordinary. It's probably going to be up there with some of the greatest wet races in F1 history. It's the first Honda double podium since, potentially, if you're going to include the Mugen branding, Spa 98, another famous wet race. You also end up with memories for myself personally of the first couple of seasons I was watching F1, so Nürburgring 2007 and Monza 2008. But it's also exceptional with the way that we ended up with half the top 10 being investigated post-race. Now, of course, two of these drivers ended up picking up penalties, and it was both the Alphas. But even then, the fact that we had half the top 10 under investigation warranted some kind of commentary. Now, of course, all of these are for valid reasons to some degree. With the with the Alphas, they broke a rule. With the other 3, so with Albon, it was a crash involving Pierre Gasly. With the 2 Hasses, it was because they crashed into each other, well, again. So it's very much open to debate there. Is part of it the fact that we had all of these incidents, well, with the exception of being the Alphas, happening right at the end of the race? Maybe that's it. Maybe that's why we ended up with these post-race investigations. It certainly could be the case in regards to Austria, but not necessarily the case in regards to Canada. So where do we go from here? What do we say from here? Obviously it's not really in the FIA's interest to have a massive rules overhaul, especially in regards to penalties, in the middle of the season. However, if they are going to do it in the middle of the season, you're going to have to see it after this weekend, because then it's the summer break and that's probably the best time to get these rules changed. However, I think it should be something that's considered more towards 2020 rules and regs, because they're currently finalising little bits and pieces on that, or potentially even 2021. Now, like I've said, it's not something that is just limited to F1. There are other FIA disciplines where you could have a wider debate about the penalty system overall. But this is the one that's probably the most prevalent because it's probably one of the largest following. Either way, those are my thoughts on the issue. I think they should definitely consider it. Whether or not they do it, it depends on the interpretations of track limit and whether or not we keep on seeing these incidents happening over the second half of the season. But either way, it's been an exciting last couple of races in F1 and I hope that trend continues. Thank you all so much for watching. If you want to get involved in the debate, do so down below. I do daily videos on this channel, so you can make sure to hit the like button or dislike button to tell me how you feel. You can subscribe to stay in the loop. If you hit the bell icon, you get to see when I upload my video. Of course, like I said, that happens every day, and I've got a couple of live streams happening over the course of the week as well. But apart from that, goodbye for now.